If you're a teenager, you probably know more about sex and less about love than any kids have ever known.
Live from Chicago, MBN Saturday Night with Ron Hutchcraft. Tonight, Ron talks about the 3 big lies of the dating game. He'll tell you what they are and then invite your response by phone. Our number is 312-329-4460. 312-329-4460. Write it down and be ready to call when the line's open. And remember, everyone who gets on the program will receive a free copy of Michelle Pillar's most recent LP, Look Who Loves You Now. And you can also win some great prizes by helping us name this program. Tonight, Ron will tell you just how to do it. And now, here's Ron Hutchcraft.
Welcome to our first Saturday night together. We have got a high-energy hour ahead of us. We're going to be looking at the American dating system and how it promises love, but often just leaves people lonely. If you've ever wanted to be close to someone of the opposite sex, and who hasn't, then you need to be with us tonight. We're going to look at the 3 big lies that are ripping off a whole lot of kids. Lies I hope you won't allow to hurt you. We've got some kids in the studio to help us. You'll be meeting them in a couple of minutes. Well, we're talking about dating tonight, and when you do that, we're talking about something I guess touches the lives and feelings of almost every teenager. I guess either you are dating or you'd probably be willing to. I think everybody's in one category or the other. My son is 13. He's just getting into this whole business of dating, and the other day he said, Dad, I'm not sure if I'm really want to take the plunge into the dating thing. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, the way I look at it, there's only 2 possible endings to a dating relationship, and they're both unhappy. He said, first of all, either you break up eventually and you get a broken heart out of it, or else you get married. He says, so you lose either way. Both are unhappy endings. Well, I would guess you might be willing to take those risks, and I think what he's saying, though, is pretty much worth asking. Does our dating system produce happy endings? We've got Lisa and Rick with us here in the studio tonight, and let me throw that at you guys. Rick, what do you think?
Well, unfortunately, Ron, I think that in the country today, more dating relationships end up being hurt in the long run. Too many kids just tend not to do the right things together. They tend maybe not to communicate, and unfortunately, in the long run, most kids do end up with breaking up rather than the marriage, and mostly hurt is experienced.
Lisa?
Well, I think hurt is basically experienced in most relationships today because, well, I think people say I love you too soon when they really don't know what love is. And also relationships nowadays are usually based on too much sexuality and seeing how many times and how many people we can make out with on a Saturday night or something.
Yeah.
Instead of
listening to this program, right?
Instead of just getting to know a member of the opposite sex as a person.
Well, we need to take a look at this thing, that if it's turning out 4 out of 10 relationships ultimately that fail, and if it's creating a lot more hurt than happiness. This may sound a little bit like the guy you were out with last week. I hope not. But Tarzan obviously has a problem here, and he has bought into lie number 1, which is this, that manhood is conquest. Rick, let me ask you, with guys that you know, and the feelings maybe even you yourself have, what's the word macho mean? We hear that a lot, macho man. Yeah. What does macho mean?
Well, being macho really means that you're better than everybody else. Macho means that you're great and they're not. To be macho, you have to wear the right clothes and have the right girl and just the best looking one, of course. And being macho is just being all around cool.
What does that mean about expressing your feelings?
Well, unfortunately, being macho, you have to hide those feelings because that's not macho or cool to express your feelings to other people, especially those of hurt and sadness, maybe.
And maybe even gentle feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
So a guy's trapped almost in this cave where, of feelings that he can't let out. I think this manhood is conquest thing is a tough one because you get it so early. A guy feels like he has something to prove about his manhood, and we use a girl to prove it. And the guys are programmed to treat girls as things a lot of times. And, when you're going to conquer something, you don't think of it as a person. And then exactly what Rick said to us, that a guy always has to be strong, never shows deep feelings. And in fact, guys do have deep feelings. There's been some research done not long ago on when couples break up from extended romances and who carries the hurt the longest. And you know, who do you think it is?
Well, you'd think it'd be the girl.
You would think it's the guy. The guy carries the wounds much longer, which proves that the guys do have the deep feelings. And we're going to be talking in just a very few minutes about our contest. We're going to name this thing. I mean, this is the anonymous program so far, but that's because we don't own this thing. You do. We want you to help us with that new name, and we've got some great prizes to give away, and you'll be hearing about that. Now, Lisa, we've got, as you know, a guy and a girl in the studio here tonight. We couldn't think of any other kinds of people to get. That's both kinds as far as we know. That's all there is. Lisa, I get the feeling sometimes that that old Dean Martin song of years ago, "You're nobody till somebody loves you," you know, and that a lot of girls feel that way because they see in the commercials that, you know, if you use the right toothpaste or the right cologne or you use the right hairspray or whatever, what happens? Well, you live happily ever after. You have a guy at the end. And I think a lot of times the whole feeling is communicated that you got to have a boyfriend. Does this seem to ring true at all?
Yeah, well, I think girls today really, that's what we see. And so that's what we feel that we need is a boyfriend. So, because we see it in media, we see it in magazines, we see it in books, on commercials, on bulletin boards along the highway, everything. So, what do you expect? Because they see that wherever they look.
Well, so what happens to a girl if she believes the boyfriend security myth? How does she act? How does it change her life?
Well, she usually ends up getting really hurt because he's not going to be there forever. And most girls don't realize that.
Do you think it can lead to desperation?
Definitely.
What does a girl do when she really feels like she's been left out? She really doesn't have worth. She's not very special. No guy has seen that she's special, so she's not. What does desperation make her do?
Go out and look for a guy usually. And usually it'll be a guy, anybody who will just love her. But actually, love isn't the word there. She'll just go and find someone who will make out with her or just hold her, but it won't be someone who really loves her or cares about her.
I guess that the tragedy of all that is that if a girl really buys into this, that the price to pay is so high for being desperate that she gets devalued. She comes out of the thing feeling worse than when she went in. You know, she feels less valuable than when she went in because she's compromised. Rick, how do you feel about starting a day? Rick's here in the studio with us, Carmen.
I think that's a great idea.
It sets a whole different tone, doesn't it?
I'm sure it does.
Interesting. It's like you're recognizing the presence of the third person.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you recognize it or not. He's there. But,
Right.
All right, that's neat. Do you guys here in the studio feel like that adds anything or helps a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Group dating, I think, it's not you. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad definition for it. You might just want to call it an outing or something under
Group
the name
friending.
Yeah, something like that. Because you do get to know many more people, and I think that's much more healthier for an overall relationship with everybody.
Don't you think there's an awful lot of pressure when a guy and a girl have to, you know, just kind of sustain the whole thing all evening, you know, and the next time? Doesn't that take some of the pressure out of it for there to be a group, perhaps?
No.
You can still get to know each other. A lot of the same things can be accomplished unless, of course, manhood is conquest and a boyfriend is security. Lisa?
Well, it just really helps break the ice, basically what you were just saying, because then it's not just totally up to the girl or totally up to the guy to depend on conversation or an activity, and it's everybody.
I've got a son who's in 7th grade, and I don't know if you know too much about how 7th graders keep house, and they don't, actually. They just sort of leave this trail of disaster behind them, except when there's something they really care about. And Doug has got one thing that he takes tremendous care of. He's got this baseball card collection. He's invested most of his allowance, his chore money in and all that, and he organizes it. He keeps it in these folders, won't even let his best friend touch it hardly, It's just a phenomenal hobby he's got, and he really cares for these things. Well, the whole point of it is that he told me that his cards are really most valuable if they're in mint condition.
Exactly.
And that's how you keep them in mint condition. Rick, you sound like an expert on these baseball cards too. Well, and I guess he's got a good point that when you keep something in mint condition, it's a whole lot more valuable. The thrill of sex, according to the Bible, is its specialness, that it's never been with anybody else before. That it's one person with one person in a forever relationship. Rick wanted to jump in on this.
Sure, definitely. I think definitely to put Jesus first at the very beginning, that's a very strong key and needed ingredient before you start anything. I think it's also good to talk maybe how much time you want to spend with each other and keep it to a limit maybe.
So you don't end up trying to own each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And also the physical thing, I think it'd be good to talk about, what you want to do as far as that goes.
Wouldn't that be nice? It'd be so relaxed if you didn't have to, play this game with each other and say, how far are we going to go?
Right.
What is he expecting? What does she want? And if you were talking about it. Beautiful. Lisa, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, even if the person that you're dating doesn't have your same standards, then they'll usually end up respecting you for it, even if they're not the same. So that it is a big part, your standards.
I'll tell you what's really neat here is we're jumping all over the country tonight, and yet notice how much our feelings are alike in terms of what we want in a relationship. Lisa?
One thing is, I think that it's a process. It'll develop from friendship and just go on, because any relationship is a process, and it won't begin as love. And that's why I wouldn't say I love you on the first date or anything, but because it's a process. It works into it, it develops into it, and then someday you'll be like, wow, I love this person.
I think if you go looking for a romance, that you may be less likely to have for it to really be love. I really buy into what you're saying, Lisa. Rick?
To me, true love really, I don't think can be experienced like marriage. I think that's what true love really needs to be saved for. And the words "I love you" even to me don't even seem appropriate until you reach that point.
We're going to be giving away prizes to the best 10 suggestions for a name. We're going to choose one of them, of course, in the next few weeks, and we're going to give away as our top prize an all-expense-paid trip to the largest, most important youth event of the 1980s, Washington, D.C. 25,000 teenagers gathered together at Youth Congress 85 in the National Convention Center, staying in 35 hotels. What a phenomenal thing. I can't believe all expenses paid. I'm glad I don't have to pay this. And we'll be giving away some other trips. We're going to be giving away some record albums. We're going to be giving away Bible games, all kinds of stuff. If you'll just help us with that name to the best 10 suggestions, so make sure you send that in. We're going to let you name the program. We can pray, like has been said tonight. We can listen to each other. We can be relaxed. We can be in a more no-pressure setting. I mean, a girl could even initiate that, right? She could say, let's go do some. None of this. We don't have to play the big dating game. Because remember this, the best romances started as a friendship.
That's right.
Started as a friendship. Look, both guys and girls want the same thing. They want closeness. Don't let selfishness or sex or society's lies ruin the real stuff. We have a lot to learn about loving, and I'll tell you where I think that comes from. When my daughter was a baby, I used to hold her in the middle of the night and feed her and say, I love you, honey, I love you. And she'd look up at me and do nothing except, kind of have those big blue eyes staring at me. And for a long time, I said, I love you, and nothing came back. But finally, one day, my daughter said to me, with her arms around me, I love you, Daddy. And she said it ever since. You know how she learned to love? She learned to love by letting a father love her. Listen, tell your friends to tune in next week, and we'll be here, same time, same station. I'm going to be here. I want you to join us. Meet me here next week.